So let me talk about then my journey with jobs to be done. So I met my wife about 10 years ago, and she's an extremely capable woman, much more capable than me when it comes to things practical and do it yourself and construction and things like that. Here is her up a ladder, fixing something, mending something with her drill. She's fantastic, super strong woman. And our daughter was born about 3 years ago, and any of you who've got kids, you know your life completely changes when children come along. And my wife could no longer put up, she said to me basically, Joe, she said, Joe, I need you to go and put up a picture in your daughter's nursery because my daughter was 2 weeks early. Can you go and put the picture up for me, please? And I'm like, okay, I can do that. I can go and put a picture up. Couldn't find our drill. So I thought, okay, to put the picture up, I need to go and buy a drill. I'm a man, I can do this kind of thing. So I went to a DIY website, a local DIY store called B&Q here in the UK. And I started looking at drills, and I thought, okay, I can buy a drill. I know what I'm doing. I know what I need to do to put up a picture. So I started looking at this drill here. And I thought, okay, great, like it. It's yellow, like yellow, trying to look for something to help me understand what was going on with the drill. And I started to then look at some of the features of the drill to have a look at it, and started looking at things like, okay, it's got 15 torque settings, load speed of 1500 charged. There were so many things in here I just simply didn't understand. And it made me think, well, I just want to buy a drill to put up some pictures. Is this the kind of drill for me? So, of course, as anybody does in this situation, I went and read the reviews. And here's a great review. The best drill ever. This is the best drill I've ever owned. Has made woodworking easily. I've actually built myself a new hay store for my horses. So if this lady here, Heather, could build something for her horses out of this drill, I thought, great, I can put up a picture with this drill. And going through this, it reminded me of this famous quote. Here's the quote. People don't want to buy a 1/4-inch drill. They want, what do they want? Can anybody complete this quote for me? You know this quote? It's by a famous economist called Theodore Levitt. And this is such a famous quote, and it was going through my head when I was doing it exactly. They want a 1/4-inch hole. You've got it in there. This is exactly what they want. And it made me think, and I was thinking, well, this doesn't feel right to me, this famous quote, because basically I bought my drill, I got started, and well, here's the wall I ended up with. Trying to put a picture up, putting the drill in, it's skating all over the wall. I got the wrong hole up here. It was too big. The plug, it was a nightmare. I tell you what, I didn't need a hole. The last thing I wanted was a hole. I wanted to be able to put the picture up. And you think about this in context, the hole is not what you need. In this situation, she doesn't need a hole. What she's trying to do is to bury somebody. You don't need a hole for this. Here, street construction. The hole is not the important part here. The important part is them is putting gas pipes in, water pipes in, electricity pylons in. The hole is not the important part of this story. Same's true here. Escaping from prison. You know, escaping from prison. This is the Great Escape movie. The hole is not the important part. The important part is escaping from the prison. And it struck me as I was buying and using this that the hole is not the goal. So when you're putting up a picture, the whole is not the end point. And that famous quote by Theodore Levitt doesn't tell you the whole story. It gets you closer to what you're trying to do, which is put up a picture, but still it's not the end state. It's getting a hole in my wall. Look, my wall is a mess now. Thank you very much. Anybody else like me struggle to use a drill? Just hire a handyman. It's not something you should be doing yourself. Anyway, so a bit about me. Fantastic introduction already. So I'm Mr. Joe, and what I do these days is I coach organizations and companies to do the right things in the right order for the right reasons. So I help organizations to make better choices and decisions, to plan what to do next. I coach senior leadership and senior product and UX teams to help do the right thing. That's what I do these days. And about the same time that I was trying to drill the hole in my daughter's wall to put this picture up, I came across a theory and a process called jobs to be done. And jobs to be done for me started to answer some of those questions I had about why this hole is not the goal for me. And at that time, I was working for the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. So this is a very, very famous international museum. And they were having some real problems with New Yorkers simply not visiting the museum. They weren't visiting there. And they were really not sure who their competition was. They were thinking, well, New Yorkers have got all of these things they could be doing. Maybe New Yorkers are going to the movies, maybe they're going to the theatre, maybe they're going to a different art gallery. They had all of these ideas about who their competition was. But the reality is we did some research because, again, most New Yorkers, they work in the day. Most of us do. They have free time in the evenings, mostly, and at weekends. The weekends, MoMA's got lots of tourists, so New Yorkers have got time to go to Museum of Modern Art in the evenings. So the true competition for MoMA in the evenings is who? In the research we did, who's the true competition for somebody like MoMA? Have a guess. Anybody, put something in the chat. Who's the Museum of Modern Art's #1 competition? So think about it again. The Art Museum in Mumbai, who's their #1 competition? And the same would almost certainly be true in Mumbai as it would be for the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Have a guess. What was interesting in all the research that we did is we thought, oh, yeah, it's other art museums, it's other cultural events. And you're right, exactly right. It's movie nights at home. MoMA's true competition was Netflix. And this was a bit of a breakthrough moment for them because they thought, oh, as a museum, you don't think your true competition is Netflix. And the reality, of course, it's true. You think about it, they're competing to do the same job. Okay. And that job really is, I want something interesting to do with my partner on Friday night. And this is really the essence of jobs to be done, is what we're trying to do is distill down what people are trying to achieve into a simple, straightforward sentence and structure. So I want something interesting to do with my partner on Friday night. And that could be going to the museum, or equally, more probably, it's watching something on Netflix. And of course, Netflix are very good at this. They, as soon as you start watching one program, it rolls into the next program, it rolls into the next program, things auto start. Before you know it, 3-4 hours later, your evening's over. Netflix are very good at fulfilling this job that people hire Netflix to do. They're very good at this. And in jobs to be done language, we hire a product or a service to do a job. And what I like about the language they use in jobs to be done is you've got this term hire, and hire suggests that it's temporary. It's not something that's going to happen all the time. So I don't go to the Museum of Modern Art every Friday. I don't watch Netflix every night. Netflix and the Museum of Modern Art have to hire my time or that job each and every time I want to do it. And that represents an opportunity for both sides of that as well. So the concept is that you hire a job or service temporarily. And the same is true of all of the products you're working on. There's a temporary nature to the way your users engage with the product. And as soon as you start thinking about it in those temporary terms, it helps you with things like retention and customer acquisition and all those important things we're working with. And the jobs to be done can help talk to that. Other interesting things with jobs to be done as well is it has this concept of a timeline. And the timeline is people move from left to right through the various phases. They go from passive looking, which is, what should we do Friday night? Any ideas? Should we chat to somebody about Friday night? Yeah, what should we do Friday night? No idea what to do Friday night. You chat to somebody. That's this concept of passively looking for something to do this job. Then you move into active looking, and typically there's an event that happens, a trigger pushes you from one phase to the next. Active looking might be you going to Google and typing in things to do on a Friday night. That's actively searching for something for that job. And an event might push you through that. Maybe it's because it's Thursday's come around and you're thinking about what to do tomorrow, or your partner said to you, what should we do Friday night? You need to make a decision. There's an event or a trigger that pushes you from one phase to the next phase. And that's really, really important when it comes to tactically understanding what your users are doing and how to capture them at each stage. You can start to capture them in the passive looking phase. You can start to look at when triggers are and move them to active looking. Then another event will be deciding. So, maybe we should, it's Friday lunchtime. You're texting your partner. Oh, what should we do tonight? I'm not sure. Feeling a bit tired. Maybe we'll stay in. I don't know. Oh, look. Email comes in, there's a special offer at MoMA this evening. Great, we can go to MoMA. An event pushes you from actively looking into deciding what to do. And another event then moves you from deciding into consuming, into doing that. So maybe you're on the way to MoMA, on the train, maybe on the way to the art gallery on the train, and at that point you could still do something else, but you're getting closer to what's going on. You're looking at something to hire that job. And what's nice about this timeline is it gives you the phases you're moving into, but also the events that punctuate that, the events and the triggers that move you from one phase to the next phase. And then equally, you can always jump back to the start again. So, maybe there's a train strike, maybe the trains are slow, maybe something's slowing you from going to MoMA. You could go out for dinner instead, or go and do something completely instead. You could move back to an earlier point in the timeline because of an event that happens. And I think the real strength of this timeline is and you look at a lot of the way user journey maps work, is user journey maps are typically linear. You start here and you go here. What's great about the jobs to be done timeline is it assumes you jump back, and you keep jumping back at certain points throughout. And that's what I like about the jobs to be done timeline. It's got phases and it's got events, but it also means people can move back to earlier points in that timeline as well. It's a great tool for plotting out what your users are up to. And back to drills again, because I'm talking a lot about drills. This fact is interesting. Supposedly the average power drill is used for somewhere between 6 and 20 minutes in its entire lifetime. So in India, do you own power drills in India, or do you just hire somebody to do the job for you? What's the way of doing it? Does anybody own a power drill in India? Anybody in the chat? Is it the same as true? We hire. Yeah, I thought you would do in India. I figured that would be the case. Well, yeah, over here in the UK and the US, typically we try and do it ourselves, because hiring somebody is quite an expensive thing, believe it or not, over here to do that kind of stuff. So people buy drills and they own a drill, and these things cost $200 typically, which is quite a lot of money. And typically they're used by most people between 6 and 20 minutes in their entire lifetime. And that's interesting when it comes to owning something like this, that you spent all that money on a tool that you use maybe for a short amount of time to do something. All right. So an analogy could be, a food mixer in your kitchen. Maybe you have a food mixer that you bought for $200. You used it once or twice in its whole lifetime to use that. It seemed like a good idea at the time. It's not something you have to use all the time. And this is the real problem with a lot of these things, is that this power drill is not a successful product. Just because people have bought it, they're not happy with it. They're not using it in the same way they should do. You saw my wall when I was trying to put that picture up for my daughter. Didn't work for me. And what that meant when I was using this drill, as I got to a point here where I started using the drill down here and consuming, it didn't work. I destroyed the wall. I went back to the start to find a better product. Now, this is called, in jobs to be done language, the little higher. So when you buy or you download or you start an interaction with an app or a service, you try it out and you realize it's not for you. Okay, it's simply just not working for me. And this is so true in apps. For your phone, 25% of downloaded apps are used only once. Unbelievable. And I'm sure you've all seen this. You've got so many apps on your phone for this, that, and the other. You use them once, maybe twice. You just completely forget they're there. They don't quite do the job you want them to do. And all the developers of those apps are high-five. Yeah, we've got 1 million downloads, 10,000 downloads. Fantastic. We're being so successful. Yeah, so many people have downloaded our app. And then the reality of how successful that app is long-term usage. You all know that. And so this is called the little higher. And it's a real trap for startups. You can seem like your product is successful because, so many people are downloading your app. But come week 1, week 2, week 3, people aren't using your app. And this is really dangerous for an organization, because you can put a lot of time and effort and resources into something that seems successful, but the reality is it's not as successful as it first might seem. Okay. And back to this again, the whole is not the goal. The whole is a part way through to what I'm really trying to achieve, which is to put this picture up in my daughter's nursery. And Jobs to be done talks about jobs in 3 different groups. Okay, we have functional jobs, emotional jobs, and social jobs. Now, functional jobs we can all understand. As user-centered design people, we understand, okay, my functional job is I want to put a picture on a wall. Simple, straightforward. We're very good at capturing functional jobs in our work. The reality is, with a lot of these jobs, is they're just not functional. Okay, so here's a functional job here. Here's a functional job described. When I'm not skilled, at home, tired after a long day, help me to put up a picture confidently and easily in the right place and not crooked, so it's straight. So I can make my daughter's nursery look nice. That's a fairly standard job statement or job story to talk about a job that I was trying to do, like put this up, okay? And you can contrast that with, for example, a user story. Again, all familiar with user stories? Put it in the chat if you use user stories, I'm sure you do. again, we are taught for user stories to write them and keep them really short and succinct and focused. What's good about job stories and different about job stories is they are longer. They're more in depth. There's more context. There's more richness there to describe what's going on, which makes it easier from a design point of view, from a marketing point of view, and from a product management point of view to understand what's happening in this situation. Okay. User stories are great for developers to make things, but they're not very descriptive in terms of a product team making decisions about what to do with something. So they're useful for different things. Job stories are rich with context and give you a lot more ability to understand what's happening, whereas user stories are great for very focused tasks, typically involving building a product. They're different things, and they contrast quite nicely. And when it comes to building up a user story, from a research point of view, the research is really easy. You just use a simple ladder interview technique. Here it is. You ask the question why 5 times. Why are you buying a drill? To make a hole in my wall. Why are you making a hole? Well, to put a picture up. Why are you putting a picture up? To make my daughter's new nursery look good. Why do you need to make your daughter's new nursery look good? Well, because my wife is due to give birth in 2 weeks and the clock is ticking. And asking the question why can help you get closer to those stories at the end of it. Okay, you can start to get closer to what that story is. You start to move beyond that hole into something that's really useful in terms of the research you're trying to do. And so if you take one thing away from me today, as researchers, ask the question why again and again and again to get further and deeper back as to what's going on. And you can start to see that my drill in this context is trying to compete with, say, a service where a team of people would come around to your house and decorate your child's nursery for you. You just choose the colors, they'd come around and do the whole thing for you, okay? And again, the clock's ticking, I need that service now. You can start to see how that can compete quite nicely with something as simple as a drill. And by getting closer to the real job, you start to see products and services that you can choose that are different and more innovative than a standard thing like drilling a hole in the wall. Okay, you start to see the stuff that really people are trying to achieve, and it helps unlock innovation, new ideas, all of those things that we know we have to do as design professionals. Okay, back to my drill then. Okay, looking at my drill here, look, there's nothing in here about putting pictures up. There's nothing in there about even making holes. There's nothing in there really helping me to understand what's going on. And it's unfortunate because, again, the other 2 types of job story that I mentioned, like emotional jobs, okay? So typically, product pages like this, they're good at the functional stuff, okay? This will tell you functionally what this product does, okay? Look, I can get 30 millimeters holes out of it. Functionally, great. If I want a 30 millimeter hole, fantastic. This is kind of answering my functional needs, but it's not helping with me with my emotional and social needs as well. So if you look at the emotional jobs I might have in this situation, when I'm putting out the picture, help me not feel stupid or overwhelmed or that I don't have the skills to do it. So don't make me feel stupid or inadequate because I can't use a drill or I can't use the tool. Help me feel good about doing this job. Okay? Give me the confidence that I can do this. And again, the real secret with these job stories is if you can understand and unlock the emotional and social jobs, it makes it a lot easier for you to describe your products to your end customer. You can start framing it in terms of, hey, put pictures up on your wall. No, feel good about putting pictures up on your wall. Feel confident about it. You can understand really what people are feeling at any one point and talk to those emotions in the product and any product marketing that you're doing alongside it. Equally, the social jobs. Again, we do not exist in a vacuum. There's people around us, friends come to meet the new baby. They come and have a look at the nursery. The family comes, the mother-in-law comes, the father-in-law comes. The last thing you want is your father-in-law looking at you going, did you put that picture up? Not very good, is it? That feeling of what's going on with that job can help you understand really what that person is feeling when they're doing it. You can start talking to those emotions and those social things as well. How do you find out social and emotional jobs? The 5 whys can help you definitely, because again, you think about me, my daughter was being born. It's like, that's the emotional trigger in my life. It's just to ask. It's to ask questions like, how were you feeling at that point? Did you talk to anybody else about that? It's just to ask those questions about feelings that often we don't ask in user research. We often ask about behavior and how somebody does something, but we don't always ask about how they feel when they're doing this, who they talk to when they're doing this, who the social group is that's helping them make this choice. Because any product that any of us work on, it's so unusual that it's going to be one user using it. There'll almost certainly be some context of that user using the product behind it, with a partner, with a family, with a friend. There'll always be some 2 or 3 people using it. So again, it's just about asking the right questions. Whys can help, but really, how do you feel? Who else are you doing this with? Are 2 simple questions that you can ask to do this. All right. And other drill manufacturers, this is another drill company, similar. Look, they're talking in exactly the same language, very similar. Okay, look, same. They're all copying each other. Look, oh, look, this one does 230 screws. Honestly, I don't care. I don't need to put 230 pictures up. I need to put 1 picture up. And again, it's not helping me understand to do the job. What they're helping me and trying to get me to do is to understand the drill on their terms, not on my terms. Okay, they're trying to sell this drill through features rather than what it's trying to help me do. And again, we all know this to be true. Don't focus on competitors and features. So if you look at this drill, it's exactly the same as the last drill. They're all copying each other. No innovation is coming into the drill marketplace because they all copy each other, because they're too obsessed with focusing on competitors and features. And the reality is they should be focusing on users and their jobs. Okay, I've written something about that here as well. I'll drop that in the chat. But again, you need to be doing this a little bit more. Oh, it's everyone. Where's everyone? Again, stop focusing on the competition. You all know that to be true. If you truly understand what users are doing and what they're trying to achieve, you're going to be in a much better position than looking at what the competition is doing all of the time. And you're right. Certainly drills are bought by expert technicians, don't get me wrong. But in the UK and the US, most drills are not. They're bought by consumers like me. So if you're selling to a technical audience, absolutely sell them in that way. If you're selling to an audience like a consumer audience, you need to market your product hugely differently. Okay, it's not about power and torque and settings and things like that. You need to market it in 2 different ways to 2 different groups. And you can't say, oh, we're only going to sell to professional users because that market's probably this large, whereas the consumer market is this big. And so you're often leaving sales on the table if you're not focusing on that. By all means, obviously speak to your technical audience, but don't alienate the much larger available audience of other people that are trying to buy as well. Exactly. Different lines of products, or even just the same product in a different box can work. It doesn't have to be a different product. It's just the way you talk about that product can be different. All right, let's keep moving on then. So enter this product, which you may have seen. You may have an equivalent of. And this is fantastic. What this is Velcro strips that you stick to your wall, you stick the picture on and it sticks. Simple, really simple, straightforward stuff. Okay. And you look at it, it's talking to my jobs, my needs as this user in this case. Look, you can see it's removable. So if it's not straight, I can just take it off and make it straight. Okay, up to 2 kilos. So it's going to be strong. It's not going to fall off the wall. I'm worried that my picture is going to fall off the wall and I'm going to look stupid in front of my wife. I don't want that. Indoor and outdoor usage. I can use it indoors. I can use it outdoors if I like, if I want to. But you can start to see how the jobs here are being spoken to in the way that this product is marketed and how completely different it is from a drill. And you think about that in your world. So maybe you would go and hire a handyman to put a picture up for you, which is going to take, you've got to make a call, you've got to pay them, you've got to wait for them to come, you've got to make sure they clean up their mess. All of that hassle involved in doing that, when you could just buy a product like this, from your local store, or get it delivered to you next day for like $3 or $4, really cheap. And again, the cost of this is really low compared to a drill of $200, hiring a handyman, similarly expensive. This is a very, very cheap product that you can just use. And again, it's competing for the same job in a very different way to the drill. And now drill manufacturers would never come up with this product. But if you're in a startup, or you're looking to disrupt, or you're worried that your sales are going to drop, Jobs to be Done can help you understand the need and come up with innovative and different products like this that do the same job as a $200 drill would do, or hiring a handyman, or whatever that might be. Very, very different way of thinking about it in terms of the way it might work. And Jobs to be done has some tools to talk about this. So this is one of my favorite parts of jobs to be done. And this is what's called the 4 forces. And the 4 forces are a way of framing how people move from the existing product to a new product, how they switch from one product to a different product. Okay, so really useful for you if you're trying to understand how people move from your competitor to you, or if people leave you to go to your competitor. It talks about 4 forces. The first 2 are push and pull. So the first force is push of what's happening now. The drill's not working for me. I don't like the drill. It's not helping me. I don't need holes. I need something to help me put a picture up. I've made a mistake. I've got holes in my wall. That's not what I need. It's pushing me away. There's the pull of the new solution. Something's pulling me towards it. Look, it's only $3, £3, $4. It's cheap. Okay, low risk. I can try it. It seems to talk about what I need to. It's pulling me towards it because it's cheap and it's easy. All right. Special offers are a classic pull. Cash rebates are a classic pull. Another classic push is something's not working, something breaks, something has downtime. That's a push. A pull is a special offer. Okay. These are 2 of the 4 forces. So there are 2 more forces. Okay. So the top 2, the push and the pull, are sending me to the new solution. These other 2 forces are pulling me and keeping me where I am now. And they are anxiety. All right. And this is very important. Again, emotional force. What happens if my picture falls off the wall? Oh, I'm worried about that. The anxiety of that feeling if it doesn't work. Oh, if I don't hire a handyman, I've got to do it myself. What if the picture falls off the wall? Again, there's an anxiety feeling there. There's also an inertia and an attachment to the way you do things now. It's easy, it's simple, you've done it before, you know how it works. Or, in my case for drill, I'm a man, I should be able to use a power tool. I can do this. I should be trying to do this. And both of these forces at the bottom here are keeping me where I am. And typically these 4 forces are, the yellow ones at the bottom are stronger than the grey ones at the top. So you've got a lot to overcome to get somebody to switch away from your particular product. So a good exercise, and I've written a blog post about this if you need to see it, is about how to use the 4 forces. Here it is. I'll drop it in the chat now. You can use the 4 forces in for your product. You map out what those 4 forces are, and it gives you a map of how you compete with somebody else. It's really tactically useful tool to help you understand where you sit in terms of your competition, how easy it is for people to switch from your competition to you, and vice versa from you to your competition. It's a great tool for understanding that. Okay. Let's keep going then. So Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world. The secret to Amazon's success is be the first to uncover hidden needs. All right, this is a big thing. So Amazon pride themselves on coming up with ideas before people know they even need it. So Amazon Alexa Echo is a great example of that. If you'd ask people if they needed a robot in their room they could talk to, of course they're not going to say no, but there's lots of other needs that Amazon covered to understand that product. All right, let's have a look at some ways then that you can use and uncover unmet hidden needs to improve your product. So far I've talked about 2 things. I've talked about how to come up with innovative ideas from scratch using Jobs to be done. I've talked about how Jobs to be done can help you understand your competitor landscape and how to get people to switch. What we're going to look at now is the 3rd part of Jobs to be done, where we're going to look at how you can develop features and ideas and improvements to your current product to make it better based on Jobs to be done. And we're going to take an example of buying a washing machine or buying a refrigerator. Now, this is a electronic goods showroom here in the UK. Okay. Now, if you look at this picture here, the same is true everywhere. The washing machines are hidden at the back, right at the back of the store. Not important. Yeah, refrigerators are front and center. They're on display. And when they are taking up all of the space, they are the ones that people are spending the time looking at. Why? Why do electronic stores like this, appliance stores, have fridges front and center, but washing machines are at the back? Why? Anybody got any ideas? Does anybody at home have a fridge like this? Well, every house needs a fridge. I mean, modern world, every house needs a washing machine. I mean, it's true. I'm sure most of you've got washing machines. I don't know. Definitely the fridge is, but what the fridge ends up being You can do without a washing machine, that's true. You can use the laundromat, or you can get somebody to wash your clothes, get a service to do that for you. But typically, the two things are sold differently because, again, refrigerators are often a centerpiece of somebody's kitchen. Is this common in India? Do you have fridges that are like this with everything on there from your schools? They do have an emotional value to them, they do. And that's a different thing, okay? You'll probably recognize this, the bits of paper your children bring home from school, your kids work up, what your kids are doing, all of that stuff, magnets, postcards, pictures, they all are stuck on the fridge. And the fridge becomes the centerpiece of a kitchen. We all increasingly spend more time in our kitchens. We spend a lot of time there. A lot of the design of kitchen things like this Smeg fridge, the fridge is the design emotional centerpiece of the kitchen, right? And the washing machine, the washing machine just does a job, and it does a job at the back. It does a job behind in the utility room, okay? They're similar products, and they're sold often by the same people, but they are used in very different ways by people like us. So if you look at, here's a typical, and if you look at any online retailer of white goods, fridge magnets all over the places you visited, everybody's got a fridge as a centerpiece. But you look at how this fridge is marketed online, all right? This is a product page, an e-commerce product page for a fridge, okay? There is nothing on here that talks to that. There's nothing about this fridge being the centerpiece. Fridges are bought visually. They are bought from a visual point of view. You buy them to be the centerpiece of your kitchen, the thing you spend your time looking at. They're often there, but there's nothing here helping you buy this fridge. It's got things like an A++ energy rating. Do we really care? Who cares? Honestly, what's the difference between A++ and A+? No idea, really, honestly. Okay, JLFW81. The name in it itself doesn't even give you the clue that it's a useful item. But then you start to look at the reviews. And again, a good tip for redesigning any e-commerce stuff you're looking at is to look at the reviews. And look, here are some clues as to what's going on for the jobs in the reviews. Expecting to visually make a choice. In-store viewing various items. So people are going to look at them and then going back and buying them online. Okay. Tells you a lot about the quality of this online retailer if they're trying to do that. Okay. To visually make a choice. Again, amazing look, looks beautiful. Some of the comments about this fridge, you wouldn't get that from the picture online. The imagery is not selling the fridge in any way, shape or form. Look at the way that a washing machine works. So again, if you do have a washing machine in your house, washing machines are, as you know, they're very mechanical. They spin around all the time, and typically they all break for no reason and spill water over your floor. And when they break, they properly break. They've gone. Okay. And typically you don't want to be waiting around for your washing machine to be fixed. You need to do your family's washing. You can't wait to do this stuff. So again, buying a washing machine is different. Typically it breaks. You need one urgently by the weekend because you've got to do the washing. The buying cycle is different. Yet, if you look at John Lewis, they're selling a washing machine in exactly the same way. But people buy these two things very differently. A washing machine is about, well, I want a fast wash, I want it done quickly. All of those things are ways people buy a washing machine, yet it's designed, the product page is designed in exactly the same way as the fridge one. So again, you look at the comments, I want to buy this wash, it lasted 10 years, I want it to be reliable. Reliability is a big thing. I want it to have a 30-minute wash cycle because it's quick, so I can put some clothes in there, get them out, it's done fast. I want it to be quiet. Again, you don't want a washing machine rattling around your house, especially if you live in an apartment somewhere. You don't want that noise in the back of your apartment. And again, you don't want issues with delivery. They took the old machine away because the old one's broken. You don't need that machine anymore. You want it to be taken away for you. And again, these are the needs that customers have and the worries they have when they're buying a washing machine. Yet, if you look at the product page for a washing machine, there's nothing here about that. Similarly, the product page for the refrigerator, the same. They're not talking to the jobs that people have for each of these two things. And they're functional jobs, they're social jobs, and they're emotional jobs. And they're different. So you can't assume that, again, if you work in e-commerce, that you can use the same template for two different products. The products are going to be sold differently, and jobs to be done can help you uncover that need that will help you then redesign and get some edge in the e-commerce stores you're looking at. And honestly, that's what I love about jobs to be done, is it gives you the ability to frame the problem better. So this quote from Albert Einstein: someone gave me an hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes defining the problem and then 5 minutes solving that problem. And if you get the jobs to be done stuff right, you can start to understand very quickly what you've got to do. If you define the jobs properly, the team then understands what to do. Your boss understands what you've got to do. Your boss's boss understands what you've got to do. The marketing team know how to talk to your customers about how to sell the product. If you understand the jobs, the timeline, the 4 forces, you've got a set of tools to unify your organization around the job your users are trying to do. And that's the strength of jobs to be done, is it unifies the organization. Everybody's commonly working in the same direction because you know what that job is. Other things that are great about jobs to be done: it works very well with design sprints. If you use a design sprint, you can take a job into a design sprint. Works fantastically for that. Also, it's friendly to managers and CTOs and chief execs because it's been in the Harvard Business Review. Here's a great article on jobs to be done. Fantastic. There's 2 in fact here. They're great. So it's friendly from a business point of view, and it's also friendly from a team point of view. So it works well for your team to get stuff out there, but it also works well for talking to your boss about why you're doing something. So it's great for that. Okay. So back to my daughter's nursery. I did manage to put the picture up. Here it is. Here's the picture of my daughter's nursery. It's just next door in there, in fact. I used those Velcro strips to do it. It's gone up straight. Everything's working. I finally managed it. Didn't need my drill. That's jobs to be done. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
How are we doing, everybody? Any questions?
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. It is really fantastic, and I think audience has really interacted during session also. And let's I open floor for discussion. And if any have some questions, please ask in the chat, or you can ask directly. Yeah, I think Priyanka, there are some questions already in the chat.
I think we had 1 or 2 questions which Joe already managed to answer during his session. If there are more questions, please put them up on the chat section.
I think.
Hello,
folks,
can you hear me?
Yeah, hello. I'm running a training workshop on jobs to be done. If you want to do a training workshop in a couple of months, there's some early bird tickets available. So I'm going to do a training workshop in November about this. I'll drop that in the chat. If you want to come to my workshop, I've dropped that in the chat for you. So I'm going to run that later in November. Sorry, questions?
Yeah, Richie, you are asking.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Joe.
Hi.
I've seen you work before. I've seen your talks before. I really like your talks and the way you explain design and the psychology behind it. So the moment I saw that jobs to be done is going to be done by you, I immediately registered for this webinar.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you to say it.
I have one question regarding jobs to be done. Is there an area where jobs to be done might not work, or does it work in every area?
I think jobs to be done, if it's a very simple, straightforward problem you're trying to solve, you don't need it. And I think certainly from a startup point of view, probably not as well, because I think that the strength of jobs to be done is it works across quite complicated organizations where everybody's got to try and understand that they're all working towards a common thing. So it can unify a complex organization to get something done. So it's better, I think, generally for larger companies. Startups don't need it in quite that way. They can use it tactically. Like the 4 forces are great for understanding how to pull users away from their existing solution. But from a strategic point of view, from startups don't need it as much. I'd say it's much better at working in larger organizations to unify people around a particular cause. So generally, I'd say that's the case. I'm trying to think of situations where I don't think it would work. I think in organizations that already are very, very customer focused, like Apple, for example, Apple don't need jobs to be done. They just don't need it because they've got this sorted already. So it's going to probably hold them back. I think if your organization is struggling to understand and to be properly user-centered, it can work for that. If you're already doing it, you don't need it.
Okay. Yeah. Apple is one example. As I was thinking, could be one. because they got a unique selling point, maybe they're not focusing on jobs to be done.
Yeah, I mean, design thinking can work alongside jobs to be done quite nicely. They work pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, if you're using something like that as well, I wouldn't say if you're already using something like design thinking, you don't need another process on top of it. But again, if you're struggling with user-centered design, it's a great way of doing it. But yeah, I don't think it needs to replace design thinking, really. Definitely not.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have a question from Kedar Joshi. He's asking, how about persuasive techniques used in e-commerce?
Yeah, I mean, you can. I think the strength of jobs to be done is it will give you big improvements. Persuasion techniques like only 2 items left or 4 people are looking at this right now, they can work in a small incremental way, but they're not going to give you true transformative changes. So the jobs I talked about then of that refrigerator sales page, for example, you can see immediately if you made the pictures bigger and you showed a video of that fridge and you showed that fridge in context, that you're going to sell more of that fridge, and that is going to dramatically increase the sales of the fridge. Whereas putting a persuasive technique in like only 3 left, it's going to have a smaller effect. You know, they're not too mutually exclusive. They just operate in different ways. And what I love about jobs to be done is it can mean large improvements, whereas persuasive is just small. You'll get small incremental improvements, and it's easier to do. But with jobs to be done, you can make a large improvement. Okay. Any other questions?
I think.
Are there any more questions?
I think I saw a comment up there about selling TVs and mobile phones are sold in a much more emotional and social way. Absolutely right. They are. Both TVs less so, mobile phones absolutely, they're the most emotional and social thing ever, really. People have such a strong relationship with their phone that they are sold very much more in that way. It's so much less about features these days because, again, you know, most people don't really care about the refresh rate or the battery size or it's more about how does it look, how does it feel, how it's going to, you know, rather than the features. It's more about that emotional aspect and angle of using it because it's something you use all the time. And you can tell it's a kind of thing as well. You can play a little game. If you're with a group of your friends and you're out for dinner, if you take your phone out and you put your phone on the table, within about, just leave it there, just leave it face down on the table. Within about 10 minutes, everybody else will have done the same thing. And that tells you a lot about the emotional value of a phone because it says a lot about you. You know, if you've got a cool case, yours is the latest iPhone, you put your phone out there, it's kind of you're saying, hey, look at me, here's my phone. And before you know it, everybody else will around the table will have done the same thing. There's a psychological competition thing about your phone and what it says about you and how you express yourself. So by taking it out and putting it on the table, everybody else will do the same. And that kind of shows you that emotional and social value of that particular product. Little game, try it. Okay.
I think we have a question from Damini. She's asking how much cultural context affects the job to be done.
I mean, obviously hugely. I mean, the jobs that I showed you here are very particularly British focused in their way, like, you know, buying a drill. We talked about the fact that in India, you'd hire a handyman to do that same job. It's different, but you're still using a product or service to complete that job. In that case, it might be hiring a handyman. But as countries change, as COVID comes in, for example, you may not want a handyman coming into your house to do something. Is that culture and time changes the jobs and what products and service you have for those jobs. So absolutely culture does. You can't expect because somebody does that job in India that same job is done in Bangladesh or in China or in New York or in London or anywhere else like that. That there's absolutely a cultural aspect to it. And all you've got to do is do the research in that country to understand what that job is and what people are using to hire that job for right now. The tool works in the same way, but you know, the results are going to absolutely be country and culture specific as well, you know, and almost certainly city specific. You know, that somebody in Mumbai is hugely different to somebody in rural India in terms of the way that their outlook on life. So of course, there's going to be a cultural aspect to that as well. Cool. Any other questions?
I have one question, Joe. Yeah. We are talking about jobs to be done, definitely. That is, but as a typical designer, when we start a process, then obviously there is a user research is going to be definitely a big role here. But when we do as a psychology part, then we always talk about something called about mental models. Uh, so, as a designer, what I am looking at is when I'm looking at the design something for a job for a done, and what things should I research when we consider to be I have to apply the mental models.
Yeah, so what extra research can you do to understand jobs to be done? You can ask the why question. So really, I'd say that the differences in the research can still be the same if you're interviewing somebody. All you do is you dig deeper for each answer they give you to a question. So if they say, "Oh, why did you buy that?" You ask why. If you ask that by why, you've got to keep digging deeper. And if you ask the question why 5 times, you'll get deeper and deeper and deeper back to the root cause of why they're trying to do something. So the only real approach and change perhaps you need to make from a research point of view is to go deeper for each question, to go deeper for that. There are some questions, and there's a question format you can use to uncover the timeline, which is a great way of understanding what the timeline people go through. I can share that with you as well. But again, I would say just going deeper with research is the best way to do it.
Great,
We have another question from Kedar Joshi. He's asking if you could put some light on decision-making process on jobs to be done by aware mind and versus unconscious mind.
Oh, good question. I think from a research point of view, it's very hard. As soon as you ask somebody an answer to a question, they can't quite tell you what the answer to that question might be. A good example is somebody's just sent me a question about radios, so I talk about radios. There's a famous question of the yellow Walkman, so the yellow sport Walkman that Sony had. And they did a big focus group on this yellow Walkman versus a black Walkman. So yellow radio versus a black radio. And in the focus group, people are like, "Oh, I love the yellow. It's vibrant. It tells you life. I love the yellow. Yeah, it looks really cool. It's much cooler than the boring black one. The yellow one's really fantastic. I love the yellow one." And they talked at length about why they loved the yellow one in this focus group. Then at the end of the focus group, they could take a radio home with them. They had the choice. You could take a yellow radio or a black radio home with you. Which radio do you think they took home with them? It was the black radio. And that tells you a lot about conscious and subconscious thought when it comes to interview techniques. And that's a problem for research generally, not just jobs to be done, that you've got to look at. When you interview somebody, they'll give you an answer to a question, but they maybe don't absolutely know the answer to that. They may sound like they know what they're talking about, but they may not. And behavioral studies are as important. So observational research can also work very well with jobs to be done, is watching people, understanding why they're trying to do something, versus an interview where you ask them questions. So observation alongside interview can really help you get to the job that you're trying to do as well. Okay.
Another question from Sandhini. Do you have any tips on how to conduct user research for B2B products if you're just starting out and use the JTBD process?
Do you know what? I've written a blog post on this, so you're in a good place, because I get asked this question a lot, and I do a lot of jobs to be done stuff as well. So I've actually got a blog post called "User Research for B2B and Jobs to be Done." So I'm going to do this to everyone. Here it is. I've put a blog post in there to do that as well. The key really with doing it is you really kind of need to do. The hard part with B2B is getting to your user, because there's 2 types of users in B2B. There's the B2B people who buy the product, who procure the product, and there's the B2B people who use the product, and they are different. So the people responsible for buying a product in B2B may not be the same people that use it, and you have to use jobs to be done to talk to both of those types of user. Okay, your salespeople can help you get closer to the buyer, and jobs to be done is really useful to understand what the buyer is thinking in a B2B scenario. But you also got to use your customer support people to get closer to the user to understand what their jobs are. And the key with it in B2B is that the buyer of the product is maybe not the user of the product. And you can use jobs to be done to look at both of them. The key really is to speak to your salespeople who speak to the buyers and your customer support people who speak to your users to get access to them. And even if that's just interviewing your salespeople and interviewing your customer support people to get some information about who your buyers and users are, that's better than doing nothing. So I use those people as proxies for the end user, salespeople and marketing people. But I've just put a blog post in, my blog post in there about that as well. My jobs to be done, I've talked about here, I should say as well, is I use a lot more of the stuff by Clayton Christensen. That's the stuff that I tend to use. I do use some of the Alan Clement bits as well, but a lot of what I talk about comes from Clayton Christensen. And they're slightly different in that regard as well. Okay. Another question, UX field, do you have some personal recommendations of blog posts, books, pointers of other people starting in the field of UX? I've got lots on my website. You can see it right here in front of you. I've got lots here about what I can do to help. Who else is publishing stuff right now that I UX field? Personal recommendations, blog posts, books. I've got some books that I can recommend to you. I'll put those in there as well. Talks wise, let me have a think about where that can be. Who's doing good stuff in talks? I like a lot of the stuff that Smashing Conference are doing in terms of UX talks. If you like those are very good. Smashing Magazine have also got some great more lower level beginner stuff for UX. So I really like smashingmagazine.com for a lot of stuff around UX as well. Have a look at them. They're great too.
You can just give a brief about your book, which is on the design of psychology. So,
oh yeah, I wrote a book as well called Psychology for Designers. Yeah, I always forget about my book. My book's good. Okay. And quite cheap as well. So
yeah,
there you go. Quite short.
I think for every designer should have that kind of a book.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I think. Yes,
okay.
I think that is...
Like I said, I'm running a training workshop on jobs to be done in a few weeks in November. So I've just put the link in the chat. If you want to come on, there's some early bird tickets available at the moment. Get in touch if you'd like to come to my training workshop, and I show you how to use jobs to be done as a user researcher in your organization as well. So come on to my training workshop too.
Yeah,
that's my book.
Yeah, I will just repost in our LinkedIn post also your workshop link. Definitely. I think yes, today we have definitely a good discussion, and thanks once again, Joe, for your time. And hopefully, as we discussed earlier, in person, definitely we try to in India. You can come here and in the personal workshop, or we can definitely try. Definitely, we are in discussion, but I think because of this COVID, we have to just move on online session. Definitely. Yeah. But definitely, we are also looking for, if we get a time, then definitely we can also arrange that kind of a workshop for Indian audience directly, so that we can work out something. Okay. I think,
great.
Priyanka, you can just
conclude. Yeah. Thank you, Joe and Tushar, for this amazing talk. It was very insightful, and being a UX researcher myself, I really found it helpful. Thank you everyone for attending this session, and I hope you all liked it and was able to learn something out of it. Also, I would like to take this opportunity to announce our first ever full day of conference, Women in Design, and it is going to be on the occasion of Gandhi Jayanti, and on the 2nd of October. And 6 amazing women in the field of design are going to be speaking at the conference. For more details, please follow us on all the social media handles, and keep checking our website. I hope you'll join us for the conference as well, and I'm sure you'll learn a lot from the conference. Thanks again for attending today's session. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
have a nice day. Stay safe. Bye-bye. Good night.
Soon. And we'll definitely, Joe, touch base soon, and we'll look for next activities. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.